Alright guys, what's going on? Welcome to your first Android Studio tutorial. So I'm going to go over some of the basics of Android Studio because it's very different to Eclipse. Like, it's just massively different in every way possible. It's based on the community version of IntelliJ IDEA, which is an amazing Java IDE. And Android Studio is basically the new Android development tools. You should be looking into these, but there's lots of different things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a test project. So we're just going to say, god damn it, test project, and our module name is going to be test, and it's going to be twisted equation. Okay, and this is going to go into my test project under my development folder. I'm going to pick Android 2.3 for this now. This is on Android Studio 0.4.3, which is the very latest. They only updated to it this morning, so it's very new. We're going to work with KitKat, language level 6, highlight with action bar now. We're going to project location contains white space. That's just the folder name. So these options here are very cool. You can add fragments, so we're going to add support library. We're going to use fragments, and we're going to use the action bar. So that will actually add the app compat library automatically to our project for us. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to show you how to do this through Gradle, which is what you want to know. But you can turn them on here. Navigation drawer, which is the cool slidey out drawer. We may use that, but for now we're going to stick with nothing, and I'll show you how to add them later. So anyway, we've created a project. Next, blah 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 blah. Next. It auto creates a fragment whether you want it or not. So it creates a fragment inside the activity. It's kind of annoying. We're going to prune that up. I'm getting a phone call. I'll be right back. Okay, so while I was on the phone, the studio is loaded up. Got our project up and running. So the main difference here is that in Eclipse, how it would work is you would have projects, a stack of projects in Eclipse, one after another, and then you would have your stack of projects, and you would import projects into other projects. It's actually set up differently in Android Studio. You have what's called a module. So each module is a project, essentially. So you can add more and more modules to your project, and each module is a sub-project inside of it. So the test here is our main module, which is our project module. Now we're going to be looking at configuring Gradle to get this stuff working. But first off, I'm going to get rid of this fragment. I don't know why they do this, but they add a fragment here. We're going to bin this placeholder fragment. We don't need that. We don't need that nonsense at the saved instance state. And we're going to bin the fragment file, the fragment of drawable or layout. I just don't like having that fragment. It just annoys me. Don't ask me why, it just does. So let's talk about getting a project to run for a start. So go into our activity main. We're just going to put go to design, just going to drop a big text in the center, and go into here and rename this to hello world, or it's at string hello world, I believe they have. Hello world. Okay. And we're going to get this to run. Now I'm actually going to start up my Android device manager, which manages all my virtual devices. So we'll start up my Nexus 5, scale display. Yep. So that should start up fairly quick. There we go. That's the equivalent of a Nexus 5 1080p screen, 5 inches. It's actually scaled correctly on my own monitor. Well, bam. I'm not sure, it might not start though for some reason. It's been having weird issues lately. So we'll just start up this virtualizer. Oh, fuck it, we'll do the Nexus 7. It's always sort of worked, hasn't it? I hope it has. Anyway, we'll get an emulator running and I'll start explaining what all these modules are. So the new build system for Android is called Gradle. And the old system was Ant, now it's called now Gradle. And Gradle is a little bit hard to wrap your head around sometimes. But what Gradle is it's essentially, rather than just building, you actually can define what to build in Gradle. Normally you don't have to deal with this stuff in Eclipse. It's a bit more low-level building. So essentially each module in the project, okay? So when we compile this project, we build it with Gradle. Essentially this test project compiles each module inside of it. But we have to define, or we have to tell Gradle where to look for the modules. So the first thing we're going to look at is what's called the build, or the settings.gradle file. We'll look at build in a minute, but settings.gradle has its own, Gradle has its own kind of syntax. But as you can see here, looking at this file here, it says include test. And this will be important later. That's telling when we build this project to include the module called test inside the same folder as settings.gradle. That's what this little thing here means. So that's how settings.gradle works. So if we add another module, we're going to be adding it to settings.gradle. I'll show you that in a minute. So we're going to take a look now at the build.gradle. So build.gradle is a top level build file for adding things. So this essentially tells everything, when we compile this project, it tells every project underneath it that it needs to compile with this. So this tells us that we need to compile all our stuff, or all our modules, with the Gradle version 0.8. Now in each module there's another build.gradle file defining each module's building or Gradle. So if we look in here, this tells us a lot of information. So apply plugin Android. That tells us, or tells Gradle to apply the Android plugin, which is used for compiling the Android resources and stuff. So basically that's something that Google makes. Looking at this here, we can see we have a release types, or build types release, so that can be ignored for most of stuff. This is Android specific, by the way. It's in the Android set. The default config tells us our version code in our manifest, our version name. So these should be matching what your manifest is. These are used for differentiating the version name. You don't really have to bother with this if you're on your own, but if you're in a team or something, it's useful. Build types, so release. So we can actually tell it to build different variants. So we could have another type in here. These are called flavors. And we could have, you know, a development version which won't run ProGuard, but then we tell it to release build. It'll automatically apply the rules here. Our dependencies is our most important thing in this folder. This tells us, or tells Gradle, what this module needs to work. And this one here is compile com.support Android appcompat v7. Now I'll explain where this is coming from in a second. So our emulator is still starting. So what this means is this tells it to compile this library from the support repository. That's very important. So essentially when you add this, this will go off to the Android support repository, which is code up on the cloud on the internet. It's actually managed by Google, and it tells it to look in there for this library and to download it and add it to the project. So let's take a look at our SDK manager. And I tell you, in order for this to work, you have to have this installed: Android support library and Android support repository. This is important. The support repository tells Gradle where to go, or it's where Gradle goes to get the libraries. Now you can add other things here. Action Bar Sherlock is up there, the standard support library, a bunch of other things are up there, but that is sort of the thing you need to know, is this. And that's Gradle. So that's sort of a basic overview of Gradle. Unfortunately, I'm having trouble with Android, or my emulator starting, so I'll actually record this on my Nexus, because if you have Android 4.4 you can actually record screens. So we'll run this on the Nexus. So we'll just wait for our ADB to link to my device. There we go. So we'll just flick a screen recorder on, bitrate 8, start recording. Oh, stop recording, blah. Cancel. So now that we've got that running, we'll start recording, and now the screen is now recording for us. So you'll be able to see, I'll embed this into the video, so you'll see this app running. But essentially all Gradle is doing now is it's assembling a debug flavor of our app, and it's compiling the module of test. So once it starts running, we'll see what it looks like. The hell is going on here? I don't know what the hell is going on. Let's just stop the recording. Ah, frick. But anyway, that's Gradle in a nutshell. The project will run. I'll tell you that much straight away now. One last thing I want to mention. This button in here, this little Gradle button, very important. If you're having issues with Gradle, or if these aren't compiling or something, clicking this will force Gradle to execute, and it'll build the project and clean build it and execute everything. So before I go, I'm going to explain what happens here. So essentially Gradle goes, okay, in order for this to work, I need to compile this library. So it goes off to the repository and gets it. Where does it go when it gets it? It goes into the build folder. And if you look here in exploded bundles, we can see the COM Android support app compat v17 19.01 .iar, which is I think Android. It's a funny file format. Essentially, this is a bundle. This is a pre-compiled library up on the repository. So here we have the classes.jar. We can look inside. We can see all the classes inside of it. So widget. Look at that. Action bar activity. And we can see our class. Obviously classes are pre-compiled, so we can't do anything with them. And as you can see, we have all the resources that are associated with the action bar. And that's it. And the assets folder. So that's where your actual repositories go. So in the next video, we're going to add our own dependencies, compile it, and we're going to access them. We're also going to download a library project, import it into Gradle, add it, and compile that as well. So we'll do that in the next two videos. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this introduction to Gradle in Android Studio, and I'll see you next time.